We're live.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another exciting film journey on Inside Movies Galore. And welcome. Today we are starting Forrest month as we are beginning his film journey in the mind of Mr. Forrest. So why don't you tell us what film that you subjected us to this week?
Thank you, Dave. This week we're kicking off July with 1984 with the 1984 heavy metal mockumentary. This is Spinal Tap, directed by Rob Reiner, starring Christopher Guest, Michael McKean, and Harry Shearer as the title band. This movie follows filmmaker Marty DeBurgi as he Marty DeBurgi follows a legendary British heavy metal band Spinal Tap on their ill-fated North American tour, which as they go from city to city everything just goes comically wrong. And in addition to McKean, Guest, and Shearer and Reiner, you've got an all-star supporting cast, Fran Drescher, Howard Hessman, Paul Schaefer, Angelica Houston, Fred Willard, Dana Carvey, Billy Crystal, a lot of names in this movie. R.J. Parnell, who played drummer Mick Shrimpton, recently passed away in sort of a moment of art imitating life, of life imitating art. Also June Chadwick as
he spontaneously combusted.
Not quite, but but I believe he did pass away recently. But he did pass away back in May. I'm going to go around. So I guess we'll get first impressions. To start all the way to my left. Brandon, is this your first time watching This Is Spinal Tap? Brandon?
Sorry, my mute button went away from me. Actually, no, this is not my first. I was introduced to it by Jake, I think back around college time. He was raving about it at one point, saying it was one of the funniest films ever made at the time. And I had said, okay, well, I like funny films. So I gave it a watch. I'll admit, it's one of those films that I could see that it's funny, but I don't quite get why everybody loves it as much as they do. It's so I enjoyed it again this time around. I had the soundtrack because I really dig the soundtrack. But it's one of those that I find is an amusing film, but not a hilarious film. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's my take on it.
Okay. And Jake, you introduced Brandon to this movie. What was your first impressions of it? I'm guessing since you were the one who introduced Brandon to this movie, this is not your first time watching it. What were your first impressions of it?
Oh, definitely not a first time. I think he may be. I think it was a little later than what he said, because I feel like it might have been maybe around the middle of my college career. I really can't remember, to be honest. My first introduction, I don't feel like it was right away. I feel like I had heard about this film for a while before really diving into it. And I think when I started, I wasn't entirely sure what to expect. But the first time I did love it. I absolutely loved it. And it's always been one that I've had kind of mixed feelings for the direction the film takes, the way it does get a little darker toward the end. it kind of helps, I guess you could say, add a bit of realism to the film, but it also undercuts a little bit of the hilarity. The early part of the film is just freaking hilarious.
Yes.
And then later on, it often becomes a more painful kind of humor at times. But it definitely is one that I enjoyed. I actually think, I could be wrong about this, but I think I came to this through the back door of this film inspired Christopher Guest, Nigel Tufnell, to start a career himself making mockumentaries. And I want to say I had seen Best in Show and Waiting for Guffman and probably A Mighty Wind.
Right.
No. Actually, I think I saw this before I saw A Mighty Wind. But I think I had seen Best in Show and Waiting for Guffman first. So I was kind of primed for that type of mockumentary. Guest, of course, stars in all the films he directs too. So, I feel like that might have been there already. But I am a big fan of all four movies. I think collectively they are four of the funniest films out there. I like mockumentaries generally, especially if they're done well. And I've long felt that Guest just hasn't gotten the respect he deserves as an actor or as a director or as a writer. Yes, he deserves more recognition across the board. Right. And Reiner, I don't know if Reiner killed his career with North. He has continued to make great films, but in the 80s everyone loved him and now no one talks about him. And it's like, he still makes good films, and so I don't know, but he sure was on the ball there with Spinal Tap, Stand By Me, Princess Bride. I mean, he was on the ball there for a minute. Well, yeah, Misery. Well, and Harry Met Sally and then Misery. I mean, that's 5 bona fide hits there in about 8 years. But yeah, I overall, I've always had mixed feelings about how off some of the lyrics are, but that's part of the joke, though.
Yeah, I mean, they're supposed to be riffing on riffing on a lot of the on the sleaziness of 80s heavy metal.
Well, it's like, and we'll get to. I'm sure we'll talk about some of the individual songs as we go. But yeah, it's just it's good times, and I had fun revisiting it, and I'd forgotten how short it is, which is it's also kind of nice to
it's only like
have a
minutes.
short film now and then.
Right.
Right. But yeah,
okay.
There you go.
All right. Yeah, great. Tammy, is this your first time watching? This is Spinal Tap.
No, I don't remember the first time, but I know it was back in the 80s because I grew up in the 80s hair band thing. So, of course, everybody's like, you got to watch this. You got to watch this, And then when I rewatched it last night, I know I've seen it since then, too. With David, I came to find out a nice little bit of history from where we live. There's a venue called Shank Hall. And there's been a lot of artists that have gotten their start up there, before they were well known. They played there. It turns out that Shank Hall didn't actually exist yet when this movie was made, but they say that they were at Shank Hall in the movie. Mm-hmm. The owner of Shank Hall let them play at UWM for the movie. And they said if he ever got a club, he would call it Shank Hall to honor them. And he got a club, and Shank Hall exists, and it still exists today in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
And the rest is history.
Yes.
Good deal.
As far as the movie, yeah, it's corny, it's funny, but it's like if you grew up in the era of the 80s hair band, you could kind of relate to some of the crap that they go through and some of the shenanigans and everything. If you actually went and saw some of these bands that were playing at the time or met some of them, you could kind of see how some of this shit could happen. So that's why I find it so amusing, because it's like, this actually could have happened.
Mm-hmm. All right, and Kroll, is this your first time watching this? Is Spinal Tap?
Surprisingly, yes.
Really?
Yes. I don't know
Wow.
what happened. Obviously, I grew up in the 80s. I loved the 80s. Big into the heavy metal scene and
Mm-hmm.
rock in general. And yeah, so I hadn't seen it. I enjoyed the movie. There was a few funny scenes. I don't think it was hilarious or hugely funny. I'm more with what Brandon said on it. Just I guess different kind of humor than I like. Like Jim Carrey type, and I don't know, lots of other kinds. Classic. But I mean, it was a good movie though. Surprising they didn't really show them doing more drugs though. And it was supposed to be a comedy, but they could have, done that funny. Because that was definitely a big thing. And even though the one guy kept saying is, you know, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and even when he was asked if he lived without rock and roll, he said, "As long as it's still sex and drugs."
Yeah, see, I thought that was funny, and you don't really necessarily need to show it to keep it
Yeah.
funny, but yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. I mean,
It's
like
just me.
that was funny. Like I said, there was a few funny scenes, and just didn't think it was hilarious. But I read there was 2 of these Final Cut movies. But usually there's 4.
There was this is Spinal Tap, and then I think there was a follow up called The Return of Spinal Tap that came out in 1992.
Yeah,
But I think that was, but I don't think that was I don't think
Yeah.
that was a feature film.
yeah. That's
They've also done at
Album.
least I think a couple of albums, and I recently heard
3 albums. 3 albums.
Well, I recently heard a solo album that Harry Shearer did as Derek Smalls. That was kind of interesting.
Yeah,
Um,
and then
yeah.
Michael McKean and Harry Shearer as David St. Hubbins and Derek Smalls performed on Hearing Aids on the Hearing Aid track "Stars" alongside a lot of other heavy metal superstars.
Right.
that's pretty cool.
And of course, the 3 of them reunited as a folk music trio for A Mighty Wind. So that was they've definitely done some more music together. And I commented as I started the disc that I loved the DVD because they got back together to record in character the commentary for the title page.
Yep.
That was
Did they?
great. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
I've listened to it. I've actually watched the DVD with the commentary on. It's pretty good. It's pretty hilarious. And actually, Michael McKean and Christopher Guest, prior to making this movie, they met in college. I'm according to the Wikipedia page, Michael McKean and Christopher Guest met while in college in New York City in the late '60s, and they played music together.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, the beginning music kind of remind me of the Beatles type music, and it's funny how they went from Beatles to like rock and then to metal.
Yep. And then also then they have that period in the late '60s where they're kind of more mellow, more of a mellow, like hippie acoustic band. Over to you, Dave. Is this your first time watching this? Is Spinal Tap, and what was your impression of it?
I'd seen bits and pieces of it over time, but yes, this is my first time watching it. I'd always heard about it. I heard that it was like a comedy thing dealing with like a mockumentary type thing. A lot of people have recommended it to me. I did pick up the movie at one point in time and stick it in my collection because of that factor, but I never rolled the tape until now. So and Tammy just recently picked it up herself, so we watched her copy. So but I didn't think it was as funny as people thought it was. I mean, there were some chuckling moments, But I do and have been around people who are extreme metalheads and can understand some of the nostalgia for it because it was a time for music. I mean, you had to have grown up in that era to understand it. There was definitely a wave of music phenomena that some people just don't understand. And if you didn't get swept up in it, then you won't understand it at all. And it was just a time of the tide. But I think that as far as musicians go, the guys who played in the band, I was expecting them to sound like shit. But
like a shit sandwich.
yeah, I was expecting them to like sing off key or something like that, and no, they were actually relatively okay singers, and you could tell that some of them actually had some voice. So I mean, it probably would have been nothing phenomenal per se, but I think Stonehenge was a pretty cool song.
Absolutely. Oh, I agree. That was the one that really got my attention.
But I'm glad that I finally watched it. And I'm glad that I have it in my collection, and I can say that I've finally watched it. So I think that's pretty much the end of my first impression, though.
Okay, good, very good. And so for me, this is not my first time watching it. So actually, my initial introduction to Spinal Tap was because they made a guest appearance on The Simpsons in the episode. It was the episode The Auto Show from season 3. Where they they appear in the show, as Simpsonized versions of themselves. And Harry Shearer, of course, was one of the main cast members of The Simpsons. But that was my initial introduction to them. My dad had seen this movie before I was even born, so he was like, "Oh, hey, it's Spinal Tap," and I'm like, "Who's Spinal Tap?" And then on my 13th birthday, my dad got me this movie on DVD. It was the second DVD that my family ever owned after Austin Powers' The Spy Who Shagged Me. And I remember trying to watch it. I tried watching it once when I was like at that age, 13, when I was 13, but I couldn't. And I found maybe just a little too slow. And then flash forward about, I want to say maybe 2 years. Yeah, about 2 years later, I'm in high school, 9th grade. I had just gone to Ozfest over summer break. I had just gone to Ozfest over summer break, and had started getting more and more into, my heavy metal started getting more into heavy metal, and started getting the music, the imagery, reading up on the history of the genre, or like reading and watching like documentaries and music videos. So kind of, and plus I have a couple of younger uncles who were big metalhead, who were big metalheads. I give them a lot of credit for influencing my taste in music. So because for me, I to this very day I'm still a metalhead. Iron Maiden, Slayer, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, Motorhead, Anthrax, Pantera, and 9th grade, I'm fully kind of become more immersed into heavy metal. I come home from school for Christmas break. I pops and I decided to give the movie a second chance. 15 years old, and so like watching it again. So I was watching again, and I found myself getting more like into it, like the music, the whole having because at the time I was learning more about about the history of metal up to that point. This is around the early 2000s. So I started picking up more on the humor, and the jokes, and eventually just kind of just blew up to a point where it became a frequent it became a frequent watch for me. And there's been plenty of other movies, plenty of comedies about heavy metal and heavy metal fans, or hard rock, rock and roll, like Airheads, Airheads, the Stoned Age, Detroit Rock City, but I can't. But this is Spinal Tap to me the ultimate heavy metal movie. Kind of taking all the cliches and tropes of the genre, and making it something that's both kind of pokes fun at it, but also but at the same time also is also unique in terms of like the musicianship. And for me, it's become, and it's so just for repeating, and as someone who loves movies, who loves heavy metal, like it's it's the ultimate heavy metal movie. I would put it as far as putting it among my top 3 movies of all time. And I've also I've got the first 2 albums. This is Spinal Tap and Break Like the Wind on my they're in regular rotation on my playlist. It's just to me it's a movie that it's definitely for me it's become definitely an easy view. Like if I'm just looking for something to watch, it's become like easy viewing for me. Like I can throw it, I can just throw it on if I'm looking for something to watch and just want something that's I know I'm gonna enjoy it. This is one of my go-tos. Something I've also become to quote frequently. It's it's just great. I love it. I love it. It's encompasses so much of what I'm passionate about.
I can definitely see the repeat watch in the future.
And
too.
Yeah, and I say this as someone I didn't even grow up in unlike Tammy and Kroll, I didn't grow up in the 80s. I didn't grow up in the 80s, so I made a so granted I did miss the heyday of like when heavy metal was ruled the world, when it was more mainstream, but. Among me and my high school friends, it was still a big deal.
Well, that's cool. Kind of cool because then you kind of get the pass the torch on to other people,
to younger generation. Okay, so movie starts. Marty DeBurgi is making a documentary about British heavy metal group, the Spinal Tap, on their 1982 U.S. tour to promote their album "Smell the Glove," and so it's David St. Hubbins on vocals and guitar, Nigel Tufnell on lead guitar, although they're both credited as lead guitarists, and Nigel does some vocals. Along with bassist Derek Smalls, keyboard player Viv Savage, and Mick Shrimpton. So, what do we think of these of them as a band? What do we think of them as a band, musically and individual, as characters?
I think they encompassed a lot of how rock stars work. I love how they get interviewed and like, oh, everything's great, and we never fight and things are great, Nigel and Dave, and next thing you hear them yelling at each other and flipping out and trying to put on a happy face in front of the camera, but
I love how they're nonchalant about the fact that apparently the role for their drummer is.
Yeah.
That's pretty. That is pretty funny.
Yeah.
That 37 band members. Wonder how many.
37.
I wonder how many of them were drummers that died.
Well, from
Yeah,
the sound
how do
of
we
it,
feel about all their drum? How do we feel about all their drummers? Because they went through a lot. They went through a lot of them.
yeah,
I mean, you've got Stumpy Peeps played by Ed Begley Jr.
Yeah.
was the original drummer when they were the originals.
right. Well, the new originals because the originals was already taken.
Taken.
I did
And
like
then they
that.
became the Timsmen.
And then
Right.
the originals changed their name back to their original name, and they could have been the originals.
Right.
But why bother and change
Right.
it?
The and yeah, that was I totally forgotten it was Ed Begley Jr. That was a few of the there's so many cameos
Yeah.
in this. It's like, and you don't even spot most
I
of them.
miss
unless
Billy
you know.
Crystal.
Oh,
I-
he in the
Come
party
on.
scene, the first scene with Fran Drescher. There are the mimes doing the catering service, and I believe the younger one was Dana Carvey, right?
Yeah.
And then the older one,
I did
yeah.
see the mines, so I didn't realize.
Yeah.
Because I mean, at the time, because you have Dana Carvey pre SNL, and then Billy
Right.
Crystal, who was he was a big name comedy star. Plus, he was a cast member of SNL at the time, along with Christopher Guest and Harry Shearer. And then Michael McKean later joined the show about a decade later. Funny enough, like there's a lot of SNL, a lot of then current SNL cast members and future SNL cast members in this movie.
And of course, the original Avenger in there too, as
oh yes. Oh, I was thinking Marvel Avenger, not I was the British.
the British Avengers.
Oh, I was too. I'm sitting there. I'm like, Chris Evans wasn't in this,
Yeah, I would say Chris Evans would have been a baby when this came
right?
out.
If he was even born.
Yeah.
Oh, he would have been born, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, he would have been alive, but he would have been a small child.
right.
Spinal Tap was supposedly a UK band.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Daniel Patrick McAnee. That's the actor.
Okay. Now let's see here. Which one was he?
He was Sir Dennis.
Sir Eaton Hogg. Yes. Great name. Yes. And then of course you had in that scene where they ended up on the army base or wherever it was, you had Fred Willard as the
lieutenant.
Yeah.
Was Howard Hasselman.
And our esteemed sculptor who created the
Stonehenge.
lovely Stonehenge sculpture.
Angelica Houston.
Angelica Houston, yeah.
I did not recognize because up to the point when I'd seen it, I just knew her as Morticia Adams and one of the witches in the Witches.
Right. Well, she of course came from a very high praised filmmaking family.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was and I should probably go ahead and mention I was trying to find, maybe one of y'all can find it sooner. But I was going to say when talking about that little sculpture, Mo had said he wanted us to mention that he loved that sculpture and wanted one for his lawn.
Stonehenge, yes.
Oh, Stonehenge?
Yeah.
Me too.
And I would like that too. That would be so great.
I don't even have a lawn and I want it for my lawn.
Let's see here. Yes, he says he wants to mention how badly he wanted a tiny Stonehenge.
To get kicked over by a dwarf.
Exactly.
I can yell at the kids to get off my lawn, or I'll send the druids after them.
You kids, get off of my Stonehenge. I think the as a group, they definitely embody the stereotypical sort of like flighty hair band kind of too pretentious for their own good, especially David and Nigel. They're both very, very, very talented, but they're channeling their talent into these really awful lyrics and good, but good songs. And it's like there's that one scene where Nigel's noodling away on the piano, and it's a gorgeous theme. And Marty DiBergi just complimented. He's like, "That's such a nice, And he talks about how I love the key of D minor is like
Very
I think
sad.
it's the saddest of all keys.
And he calls the number "Lick My Love Pump."
Lick my love. And I thought that was great. But and then Derek, meanwhile, there's one great line he has, and I can't remember precisely what he said, but it's something to the effect of like, well, David's like fire, and Nigel's like cold water, and or ice, and I'm in the middle, kind of like lukewarm water. It's like, who would describe themselves that way? But he kind of is. He's the mellow middle ground that would hold the band together if they were less dysfunctional. Yeah. And he is rocking a pretty crazy mustache in that film.
Yes.
But Shearer, of course, is just he's another undersung actor. And they really should have killed The Simpsons when he left. That's just like, actually, he took half the damn characters with him.
Wait, didn't he stay? I thought he stayed.
I thought he left. I don't know. I don't watch the show enough.
Talking about retiring, but then I think he stayed.
Oh, okay. Maybe I missed something.
But then again, I don't know. I haven't watched The Simpsons regularly in over 20 years, so. All right,
I remember when The Simpsons started.
But anyway, they come to America. So Spinal Tap, we learn about the history of the band, like their early beginnings in the 60s, and the revolving door of drummers that they go through.
Yeah, and, like they've been around for a while.
And we are also introduced to we see them. They're at a party for their label. We're introduced to and we also we meet their manager Ian Faith, who's kind of short. He's kind of short tempered. Carries a cricket bat for. Let's just say to maintain. Let's just say to
motivation.
Motivation. Yeah. So what do we think of Ian?
It's funny. I think he's a decent manager. And he's not really sleazy, which a lot of managers are sleazy. He generally tries to do the best for the band.
He's very no nonsense. He's a very no nonsense.
And with the Stonehead screw up, he took the blame. But it was real. I mean, he complained about it too. So he's like, the real thing, and then she's like, "What do you mean? You said 8 inches, and or 18 inches, whatever." So he took the blame. He didn't say it was our fault or anything else. Well, of course he was trying to say it was their fault for putting 18 inches on the napkin, which again, like you could say, but he knew what they meant, and he knew that because he tried to, he yelled at her for not doing it. So, but I don't know.
He did.
I think he was a decent manager, and I think he tried to do right by them as much as he could.
I don't know. I kind of go ahead, Dave.
I was going to say, and I think Fran Dreier was there at the party talking about the fact that their album was just kind of too obscene for the labels and everything thing like that going on. So she's the one who suggested that they should just it was that she put forward that the Beatles' White Album had absolutely nothing on it, and it was a hit. So
she neglected the subtext.
Black Album.
The subtext there that she neglected to mention is that it's the freaking Beatles. Of course, it would have been a hit, but I think Ian for me has always been a difficult read. I feel like I feel like in some ways he's still very loyal to the idea of the band at the very least.
Mhm.
He does seem to still like and respect them as a group. That you guys are right about a couple specific things he does. Like he goes to bat for them against the label, saying it's not that offensive and that sort of thing. But on the other hand, if he really was a decent or competent manager, things would not have fallen apart as much as they did, as fast as they did. Even if the label pulled the plug and just didn't want to tell them, there's no way it could have failed that spectacularly if he was good at his job. I mean, that's
right.
Or at least it never seemed to me that way. I do think that the part that I have trouble reconciling, even after several viewings, is has he started to check out, cash in his chips, think like, what am I going to do once this tour's over? Or is he actually believing that they'll go on as a band? I don't really know. He's kind of hard to read on that, I think.
Right, and he bats, and funny that you say he goes to bat for them. More ways than one.
Yeah. Actually, I like when DeBurgey asks him about the cricket bat.
Yes.
He straight up says, "Is it an affectation?" Which is not exactly a compliment, but Ian doesn't think twice. Oh yeah, it definitely is. But then he goes on to say, "But I tell you, it's come in handy." They show those scenes, and I can imagine it would. It reminds me of years ago. I worked in a store where there was a return policy that said the phrase "at our discretion." And we had a billy club behind the counter with a sticker on it that said discretion. It was a joke, but we liked it. It was fun.
And so over the course of this tour, things go wrong. They shows are canceled due to low ticket sales. Major chain retailers such as Kmart refused to sell their new album "Smell the Glove" because of that cover that Fran Drescher the aforementioned.
Don't forget Sears too.
Yes,
because of don't forget the book signing or the album signing.
That they have a meet and greet at a record store that nobody shows up to.
And I like how the dude is like, here, I will just turn around and you can kick my ass.
Incidentally, that being our Paul Schaefer cameo, he was kind of fun in that role. I haven't seen him act very often, but that was. It's interesting seeing him with any hair.
I know that completely threw me off. That threw me off at the time. And actually,
there wasn't a lot.
Yeah, and then you also have a cameo from Howard Hessman from WKRP in Cincinnati and head of the class.
I said that.
Oh yeah,
Austin Police Academy.
Yep. And at one point one of their older songs, "Cups and Cakes," comes on the radio. One of their deep cuts, and the DJ who was playing the song writes them off as has-beens, which putting yet another thorn in their side.
And where are they now, File?
I actually really
a salt in the wound. I should say another salt in the wound.
I actually really like that part. For some reason, that song is the one song out of the entire movie that I always remember the most.
I could have sworn
it, but that one and the Flower People song are the two songs that stick out in my mind the most.
I know. I was going to say, I know Flower People was one of your favorites.
Those are the two that I always hum whenever I think about this.
Listen to what the flower.
Harry Shearer is shushing.
Right.
To me, going forward, the two songs that I will remember from this movie are "Big Bottom"
all those bass guitars.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
The Big Bottom scene was funny.
possibly "Sex Bomb" too.
Big Bottom. I
like the Stonehead song.
I was listening to this time. I was like, Big Bottom has to be a riff on Fat Bottom Girls. It has to be. And you listen to this and you're like, Fat Bottom Girls suddenly sounds rather quaint and even and family friendly next to this.
Oh yeah.
Well, what's interesting is that they're singing it to a crowd of people that seems to be like enjoying and cheering them on. And it's like you're listening to the lyrics and you're like, the normal audience would probably not. Well, if you grew up like Catholic or whatnot, you'd probably be walking out the door just like those people did in the military.
It depends. If they grew up Catholic and they were hearing this for the first time at like a college party or something, then I guarantee you they'd be like, "This is what I was looking for to rebel against."
Yeah, dude, Catholic girls are bad. Trust me, I've had a few.
Yeah, I do like at one point. I think it's Marty DeBurgi, but someone points out to them that their audience seems to have an unusually high percentage of young males.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm like, I could believe it.
That's the way it goes. But I love their answer of why, because the girls are afraid because they have the tight leather and the
right.
They had bikini in their pants or something.
Right. Well, and speaking of the songs, there's the one they play a few times throughout the movie. I'm feeling like I feel like that one. What's that?
Which one? Tonight I'm going to rock you tonight.
Tonight we're going to rock you tonight, which I saw is probably a riff on Kiss's "Rock and Roll All Night" or whatever. Yeah, and it's probably about as lyrically deep. But it's a catchy song.
Yeah,
I did get a chuckle out of the one scene where the one guy, the dude with the stash,
Derek Smalls.
He couldn't get out of his
ice cocoon. Yes,
ice cocoon, and was trying to like do stuff to try to get him out of there, and then they took the blowtorch out. Now that's where I was chuckling to my butt off.
It's like almost all the. I mean, apart from their demon skull, almost all of their props, on stage props don't work. You got the cocoons for Rock and Roll Creation, the 18-inch Stonehenge. At one point they're playing at least at one point they're playing Hellhole. And Nigel Tufnell has he bends so far back while doing guitar solo.
That was the funniest scene in the movie. that was the funniest scene for me. That was just hilarious. I mean, it was so funny. He's like he's all the way back. He's there. He still played the guitar the entire time too. Like, he was being picked up and I was like, damn, that's pretty good.
I think the funniest scene was the metal detector scene.
Oh, yes, the airport.
The Stonehenge scene could have worked for them if they had left it like in the air instead of letting it go all the way to the ground. Then have a bunch of little people essentially gather around it.
Dressed as druids.
Yeah, and still dwarf the thing, which they commented on later, which...
They might have even succeeded. They might have even succeeded with it as an actual stage prop if they didn't have people dancing around it who were towering over it.
Right.
That would have, yeah, but I admit if they left it suspended, that would have been a good plan. And you would have thought, so this is one of the parts where Ian failed them. You would have thought he would have shared that info with them before the show. You know, maybe he thought, oh, well, they'll just wing it. They'll just work with it, you know, and I'm like, no, you're setting them up for embarrassment if you don't tell them that before the show. You know? That's like, yeah. But it was a great scene, though. And yes, Stonehenge was one of the songs I remembered from my first viewing. It was one of the ones that stuck out to me. Yeah.
Same here. And also, and you know, we also see Nigel's guitar collection and his amps.
Yes. Best scene in the movie. I love that entire scene. It was so good.
Don't even look at
Yes. Yes. It's a brand new. In fact, it's still got the sticker on it.
Don't touch it. I was just pointing. Well, don't point. Can I touch it?
Right.
No. No.
And what I like at the beginning, he holds us up and he's like, listen to the sustain. I don't hear anything. Well, you would if I was playing it.
Get a beautiful sustain.
And then of course there's the famous scene with the amps. These all go to 11.
Goes
It
one
goes
higher.
11.
Goes to 11.
Yes.
Why
Yes.
don't you just go 10, make 10 louder? But this goes to 11.
I love that part. He pauses for like a full overlong beat and just stares at him like, you what? like he can't even believe that he just heard that question. And then he's like, this goes to 11. And I admit that is a line that I have definitely co-opted into my daily
Same here.
yes, yeah.
All right, so then we also get to see Nigel doing an extended guitar solo.
Yeah.
Where he's playing his guitar, shredding on guitar while playing another guitar with his foot, and then starts using a violin using a violin, brushing a violin against one of his guitars, and he then has to tune the violin to get the sound right.
Because I'm sure that's why it sounded off.
Yeah.
Well, that was probably a thing of because Jimmy Page from Zeppelin was known for using the bow on the guitar, so that was probably a little thing.
Yep, and you'd have guitarists like playing. You have like Jimi Hendrix playing guitar with his teeth,
and
setting his guitar on fire. Yep.
And Lita Ford playing a double neck guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And of course the guy from Nitro playing a quarter neck guitar.
Yep, Nitro. I remember. Yeah, I never heard Nitro, but I remember like seeing pictures of them, like some of the hugest hair I've ever seen.
Yeah, dude. Not only that, but the lead singer could break glass with his voice too. So they were a pretty sick band. I mean, they never made it huge, but they had some fucking talent. That guitar got stolen off their bus. Yeah.
All right, and so along the tour, David St. Hubbins' girlfriend Janine follows them on tour, and she tries to give her input on the band, like with costumes, with the overall show. What do we think? What do we think of Janine?
I think she's doubly great.
I actually feel like she's a combination of Yoko Ono and Nancy from
Spongin, right?
Right.
Yeah, I could see that.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think she is sort of the stand-in for the woman breaking up the band. I definitely think that's
Which can be, which is kind of a trope in rock and roll, which is like something of a trope in rock and roll itself. like with Yoko Ono and every woman that every major, actually, like all of Mick Jagger's wives and
Pamela Anderson.
Yep. Heather Locklear.
Not as much as Pamela. It's not as much as
No,
Pamela.
I mean, because she was married to Tommy Lee and to Richie Sambora. So
Yeah.
Actually, I'm sure some would put Courtney Love on that list.
Oh yeah. Well, granted, that was a little before. Granted, this was.
Yeah, well, this would have been before that, but yeah, I know.
Yeah, I'm one of a firm believer that Courtney Love and Kurt Cobain weren't exactly a cool mix.
Oh no
I'm
doubt.
of the opinions they both suck, and who cares?
Ooh.
So the tour continues. After the disastrous Stonehenge number, they get Ian quits as manager, and Janine takes over as manager. And things just continue to get worse. They get the venues get small. The venues get smaller.
I told him 100 times the Spinal Tap first and then the puppet show.
Well, they definitely.
Actually, Nigel briefly quits the band, and they have to play at a state fair.
With having a puppet show named first before them.
And don't forget, then they had he quit. He quit when they were at the
Air Force Base. Yes.
Yeah.
Where at Air Force Base, where it's supposed to be a classy event, and they're playing a song called "Sex Farm."
That's not classy.
I enjoyed that one.
And so Nigel quit. Nigel has trouble playing because his guitar because his radio amp keeps getting interfered by keeps getting interference from a flight tower, and he quits the band mid song.
He throws down his guitar and just walks off.
Yeah, storms off, and even during they have a recording session where him and David get into it. This is kind of the point where the movie kind of I can't remember who was it. Brandon, was you this? So second half gets a little more serious or more, or was that was that you, Dave?
I think that was possibly Jake.
I thought it was Jacob.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think it was. Yeah.
What happened?
Oh, like how things tend to get a little more tense towards the end in terms of the tensions between
Become more realistic.
Yes.
Right.
And when they get to the when they get to the amusement park, because they didn't have Nigel with them, they're limited in what songs they can play. So they go with Derek's original piece, Jazz Odyssey, which is just total basically an 18-minute bass wank fest. So what do we think of? Actually, since we've talked about some of the other songs, what do you think of Jazz Odyssey?
Boo!
It was okay.
Could have been better.
Yeah. It was no Moby Dick.
Yeah.
So they go, and so after this show, after the disaster at the state fair, they have a wrap. They're having a final. They have a pool party. Where they weigh their options of what to do after the tour's over, including making a musical theater production about Jack the Ripper.
Sausage Jack. Yes. I would see that.
Right?
So would I.
And things but they end up playing so the final at the end of the show their final show, their final American show, Nigel returns to inform them that Sex Farm is a hit in Japan, and Ian wants to book them for a tour there. So they're the rest of the band's kind of like iffy, they're not, they're pretty aloof.
Hey, I'm just a messenger.
So they go on stage and start playing Tonight I'm Gonna Rock You with Nigel looking on backstage. But David eventually, David cues him to come to grab his guitar and join him. So he finally does, but he's still having radio problems with his amp before he finally gets it to work. But then Mick Shrimpton spontaneously combusts on stage to end that tour, and they pick things up back up in Japan with new drummer Joe Mama Besser.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, they finally found an audience, or a receptive audience.
Which that seems to be sort of a long-standing joke with
rock and roll bands.
With rock and roll, well, just general kind of bands too. Like there's that great that fun song by the Arrogant Worms called "Boy Band." That has that the one line, no one likes us here, but we're big in Japan. That does seem to be a common theme with those.
If nobody likes you in America, you can always go to Japan and make it big.
Or there was this band from North Carolina called Firehouse. They were a hair band, and apparently they were a bigger deal. They had like one.
I saw them in concert.
Oh, you have?
Yeah, I saw them open for Tesla.
Yeah. Oh, nice. I've seen Tesla before a few times. They're good.
I saw Tesla 3 times.
But apparently, like they only had like one hit here in America. But apparently, they're a big deal in India.
They had a couple hits.
Yeah, they had a couple. I like Firehouse.
Love of a Lifetime.
But I remember like reading about Firehouse.
Okay.
Apparently they're a bigger deal in India than they are here in America.
They the drummer was throwing his sticks up in the air when you could hear him playing. So he obviously wasn't actually playing. They were doing and the lead singer was lip singing. So I loved their album, but live they were not that great.
Well, look at Sugar Man, that particular one.
Oh yeah,
His name, what was
Sixto Rodriguez.
Yeah, he was amazingly popular in South Africa.
Yeah,
a matter of fact, became almost a face of the anti-apartheid movement, which was kind of weird. That he was basically working a job for hardly any money here, living on the poverty line. Hard to believe where people are popular.
So the movie. So as the credits are rolling, we see more interview footage of the band, including including some footage of Shrimpton before he died, taking a bath.
We should really talk about the cucumber scene.
Yes, the zucchini. Oh yeah, the zucchini. It's funny watching that scene. I mean, like he has to keep emptying his pockets and actually it's funny though when you watch that now. It's just and how airport security was handled back in the pre 9/11.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's so quaint.
Oh, I love the look on the girl's face when she was like, she's so uncomfortable. Yeah, it was like,
She's got the metal detector. She's got the metal, the sniffer.
Yeah, it's keep going
over his groin.
Do you have some metal parts or?
In fact, on the DVD, if you go into the bonus section, they kind of do like a nifty thing where you hear the zzz, over the groin, and that's where you go into the bonus section.
Yep, same with actually because I like one of the first DVD releases where it starts off with you go to the you're right. I remember you go to the special features, you go to that page and they get the sniffer. Actually, the DVD itself has some of the music. Has actually for anybody who's got the DVD. Have you watched any of the music videos that are on the special features?
We watched a couple of them last night.
Yeah, did you see the one for Hellhole?
No, we did not, but I'm sure we'll eventually check that one out.
Oh, it's a good. The way it ends is pretty hilarious. But we can have some footage of. But we as the credits roll, we see extra interview footage. What did we think of that? What did we think of? Think of some of those interviews.
Well, they're pretty fun, and I think we already alluded to the one with Shrimpton where he's like, "Well, if it's got sex and drugs, I suppose I could do without the rock and roll." But they're like all of them. They're asking them what they would do if they were not rock and roll singers, and they kind of end with Nigel's weird rambling answer.
Actually, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say where basically he describes himself being on the cast of Are You Being Served? I mean, basically.
Actually, I just wanted to backtrack. One moment that stuck out to me was when Nigel and Ian are backstage, and Nigel is trying to make a sandwich.
Oh, I agree with him, man. What the hell? Why do they have to give you these fucking tiny little bread to make a fucking sandwich for?
And Ian's like telling him to fold the meat, not the bread.
Right, but the bread fell apart when he fucking tried to fold it. So I totally agree with him there. I mean, maybe he went a little overboard on complaining about it, but I was definitely right there with him. I love my bread, so don't fuck with the bread. Don't give tiny pieces of bread. Fucking. Well, he was,
a lot of
he was still right.
Like that back then, though, they had weird things, Was it?
I agree. They do just what they chose.
Wanted only like green M&Ms or something.
Yeah,
Someone didn't want.
I mean, what they chose to do in this movie, I just think that he was right about. I don't think he was being that over. I mean, he was, but I think if they had done.
He was being petty and being
I
weird.
wanted
like
3
a lot
would
of
have
them
been
were
better.
then.
That would have been better, but yeah, I mean, because I agreed. Can't fuck with the bread.
I agree. I could have gotten just like a loaf of regular cut bread, and he would have been good. Sometimes you just don't need to go fancy.
Alrighty.
All right. So I guess we talk about. Well, I guess this movie is about music, so we've talked quite a bit about the music. Production design. How do we feel about that? I mean, I think they did this is a low budget movie, but they did a hell of a job with the and even though a lot of the stage props didn't work, they still look impressive.
Yeah, I think they did a good job trying to portray some of the realities that may happen within a band. Some of these things you can actually really like imagine can and could happen. Like,
yes,
there are like things that happen on stage during a performance that I'm sure bands would probably say, "Hey, we did not expect this to happen."
Right.
But they made it look like they had audiences at their performances. They made it seem like it was a reality, you know. So I thought the productions of each was definitely not that bad. So
I think they definitely captured what they needed to for the scenes. Like, I think the idea of playing a band that's on a steep downward descent allowed them to put them in places that would not have made sense if the band was riding high. You know what I mean? If they were, and so it works narratively, but it works budgetarily too, because that probably helped save a lot on the budget by doing what they did. But I do think that, most of the scenes, there are very few, if any, places where I feel like it looked off or out of place or whatever.
Right. And I think anything. Music. We've done. Oh, and also, what do we actually think of the costumes? I gotta say, I like Christopher Guest for me had like a lot of the best outfits in this, like with like the skeleton shirt and the checkered pants.
The shirt was cool.
That was one of the great post credits or credits interviews, though, where he's talking about the shirt and he's like, "This is the exact replica of what I would look like if you took away all."
But I wouldn't be green. Oh, yes, it is. But see how the hair is blue? He's like, yeah, but the blood's red.
And I turned to Tammy and I was like, "Isn't Spock on Star Trek green-blooded?"
No.
I've been seeing a lot of green blood on X-Files, but yeah.
All right, so I guess should we go to favorites?
Yeah. Well, actually, related to costumes, though, and we kind of touched on this before, but definitely this is one where hair and makeup was a big part of it. And again, I think the look that they had for the characters was great. I think it was.
I mean, this was done in the 80s, so it was what. It wasn't like they were going back to the 80s and making like a nostalgia piece. It was actually made in the 80s. So.
Yeah, like they could actually it felt very contemporary.
Indeed.
As soon as I started watching,
as opposed to someone who was born after the 80s trying to recreate what they've seen in like YouTube and like old videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
We were there.
I think we should do favorite scenes and favorite song.
All right. And actually, I think for the outro, I kind of want to add. I guess we should add. I might want to ask. I'm going to ask everybody what's favorite. What's the favorite show you? I'll ask favorite concert you've ever been to. But anyway, favorite. Anyway, let's go around. I'm going to go around do favorites. So. Brandon, favorite scene, moment, or anything.
Well, like I say, I like the one where they're listening to the radio, and of course their old song comes up on there, and just hearing the Cups and Cakes song playing in there, it's one of the few moments that really kind of had me crack up there.
Actually, and also, what was your favorite? So, also, what would you of all the songs that played in the movie? Which one was your favorite?
It's between Flower People and Cups and Cakes because those two stuck out in my mind so much. Though that Stonehenge scene does come in a close second when it comes to the stuff. Mainly when they have the thing lowered down on the stage and they have the two little people come on to dance in it because it's supposed to make it look bigger, but instead it just dwarfs it, literally.
All right, Dave. Favorite scene and favorite song.
My favorite scene is the zucchini.
Okay, yes, that's a hilarious scene.
It's hard to say my favorite song because I like a few of them that are in here. It's a toss up between Big Bottom, Hellhole, and Stonehenge.
Okay,
Leaning more towards Stonehenge though.
good pick. All good. No, all good picks. Kroll, favorite scene and favorite song.
Well, my favorite scene is when Nigel fell back. You know, he's playing the guitar and he fell back, and then he couldn't get up, and the hand is over there trying to pick him up and keep moving him all around. He's still playing the guitar the whole time, and you know he finally gets him standing up and pushes him up, and then he's back there rocking. You know, he looked like a elderly old man for a few minutes there with the makeup and stuff. It was a pretty funny scene. That to me was the funniest scene in the movie, and the Stonehenge song is the one that I liked the best.
Okay, and Tammy, favorite scene and favorite song.
It's hard to pick a favorite scene. I guess my favorite song is Stonehenge, and actually the scene from that too, because it just the look on their faces when the thing comes down, it's just like, and then it gets worse because then the little guys start dancing around it, and it's like they're looking at each other like, can it get any worse than this? You know, so
Right.
I guess it would have to be that.
Okay, and Jake, favorite scene, favorite song.
Well, this is absolutely a movie that has a lot going for it in terms of great scenes, and it seems a shame to cut it down to just one. But like I said, without question for me, it's the scene with Marty and Nigel looking at the guitar and amp collection. That just it's just comic gold. That whole scene, it's perfectly acted by both of them. There are several good ones, and I should mention one line that I wanted to, that I put on the chat earlier as we were talking about, but it was like, where they're discussing the album covers or whatever, and Nigel and Dave have this little aside where there's such a fine line between stupid and clever. and it's like, and they seem, yes, they were probably very familiar with that line. They probably hooked back and forth across it a few times.
That was when they said that. Oh, it would have been okay if they put you four in bonds instead of the girl.
Right. But that was they just twist it a little, But as far as or like, there's so many great one-liners. It's like the part where they're talking about their drummer, the fate of one of their drummers, and Dave was like, dozens of people spontaneously combust each year. It's just not really widely reported. or one of them died in a, quote, freak gardening accident.
Bizarre gardening accident. Or how they couldn't dust for vomit. You can't dust for vomit.
Can't dust for vomit. Died in a bizarre gardening accident. Authorities said best leave it unsolved. It's like, wow. So like I said, so many great one-liners, but I do love that this scene with the guitars is my favorite scene. As far as the songs, as far as fully formed songs that really you feel like you're actually hearing the song itself, it would probably be a toss-up. My favorite one by Spinal Tap proper would be Stonehenge. But I do really like Listen to the Flower People. I think that's a great little song. It's a lot of fun. And but as far as unfinished, I really loved what we heard of Lick My Love Pump. I wish it was a completed song, because it was such a great start to one. He might want to go back to the drawing board on that title, but you know.
I think they should release this song, the title, with the title as is, but give us the full piece.
Right. Yes.
Humble.
I would say for me, I would say favorite scene. Yeah, it's hard for me. Like, there's so many great moments, both like big moments and little moments. The scene with Nigel and his guitar solo, are just comic gold. The Stonehenge scene, I love. Like, it starts off all dark and kind of spooky, mystic, but then just ends just on with that dinky little Stonehenge prop that keeps getting kicked over as the gnomes, as the dwarves are dancing. That was great. That's great. When they're talking about the fates of all their old drummers, or about the deaths of all their old drummers. The scene where Nigel is trying to make a sandwich. Like, for me, a lot of the best scenes involved Nigel. Also rock and roll. Also, when they're playing Rock and Roll Creation, and it's just and Derek Smalls can't get out of his pod. Just like so many good moments. Favorite song, I would say, for me, it's Tonight I'm Gonna Rock You Tonight, because I remember I used to be able to play the guitar. I knew all the guitar I remember I used to be able to. I knew like all the guitar solos for that song by heart, as a guitar player. Also, Hellhole and Stonehenge, because Stonehenge to me sounds very, very heavy, like with the theme, with the themes of like it seems like the most metal of all of the.
Oh yeah, it does.
Of the songs. But yeah, there's just so much. For me, there's just so much to love about it, in terms of the jokes and the characters and the music. So I guess we'll go. Actually, by the way, Brandon, I want to know, where did you find this comic that we're looking at? That's
okay. I just found it when I was looking for cover art online, and I did an image search for This Is Spinal Tap. And this was one of the most amusing ones.
No, this looks great.
I was trying to find something that would go well with the background of our stuff.
And it kind of encompasses so much of the movie,
For all I know, it could be promo art for the damn thing.
All right, so I guess we'll do outros, introduce ourselves, and I guess we'll just maybe favorite band, favorite bands and shows and concerts we've been to.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So Brandon, so why don't you introduce yourself, favorite and your favorite music, favorite band, and favorite concert you've been to.
Well, SeptumSin of SeptumSin versus the World. We like physical media here, and we do our best to try and get that going. We've got lots of little stuff going. Right now, our main concentration is the Versus Awards, and I'll let Jake talk a little bit more about that. But I have got we have got the nominees. And I'm working right now on trying to do another review, which who knows when that'll come out. But because I like to watch a film there, but it's going to be the sequel to Horror Tales. So it'll be Horror Tales .666 Part 2, which is a really good film. I did really enjoy it. Joe Wynkoop, Phil Herman, a few other ones there. Pretty good. Pretty fun. actually, I thought, and even an improvement on the original, which is saying something, because the original is a definitely classic shot on video. And we are in the final stretch of the Shackled Demon project, which to this point, it's going to, it's already been sent out to the distributor. So we're just going to be waiting to hear from them to make sure everything is kosher, and then we'll be advertising the heck out of that. But I will let people know that it's going to be for a very limited time. It's amazing how just creating 30 of a movie on physical media is extremely draining, indeed. So definitely worth scooping up. Of course, there are a couple others that are floating around, but we expect to see more of that shortly. And as far as favorite band, of course, I really wish I could have seen Queen live in concert. That would have been amazing. Listening to the my father actually would actually play the I want to say it was 70. I can't remember what was the 70 something concert that did. I think it was 79, 70 something like that. They had a concert that they played live, one of their first live albums. He'd play that when I was a baby in the crib, and I still would find that amazing to see. But as far as favorite concert I went to this one house concert where you had we were there mainline for a band called Corn on Macabre, which was this punk, heavy punk band. It's one of those that kind of borrows more from metal than punk, that had some pretty cool horror related songs, and they did apparently an amazing cover of Paint It Black, which we never got to hear because the amp blew out. But the first one, called Play on Deaf Ears, their sound was quite amazing. I remember we were quite young. We were all amped up to 11, and because when it goes past 10, and the house was falling down on us. Not something I would do these days, but back then it was quite a trip.
Okay, and Dave, introduce yourself, and also your favorite band and favorite concert you've been to.
Sure. My name is David Streggy. I'm one of the founding fathers of Inside Movies Galore. So thank you for joining along with us on this musical journey. It was a treat. So thank you, Forrest, for choosing it. I'm glad I finally saw it, and I can say that I'm glad I have it in my collection. But we go on about various films of all levels, and hopefully we'll be kicking off the rest of the summer with some more exciting film journeys for you. But I also moonlight under a different channel called Delusions of Grandeur, where I go on about my own video pickups, sometimes do my own video reviews, and we also do something fairly similar on that channel, where Kroll and Tammy are part of the crew, and we hope to have you join us in listening to the show. But if I had to choose a favorite band, for many years, I've always liked a little-known band called Saigon Kick from the 90s.
Love is on the way.
Love is on the way. But I know that I would never get to see them live, but my favorite concert that I've been to was one that Tammy and I went to with Alice Cooper and Iron Maiden down at the Summerfest grounds. So
I think I saw that tour.
that was pretty unique, and I thought it was an interesting time, and I could definitely feel what it was like at an actual, concert. So, but I know that it will never be like it once was. And Tammy keeps telling me that you really should have been there. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Okay. Kroll, introduce yourself and your favorite band and favorite concert you've been to.
Well, I'm Kroll, aka Ron. I come on this podcast and go in, like Dave said, on Sundays, and I enjoy watching movies and TV shows and playing video games and reading Star Wars books mostly right now. I've been to a lot of great concerts. Iron Maiden, Megadeth, Metallica, Motley Crue, Kiss, Ozzy. I saw Ozzy before the Ozfest, No More Tours tour. Also saw Ozfest as well. But I have to say my favorite is probably Bach of Skid Row. He'd already split from the band. And I went into a small place called the Living Room in Providence, Rhode Island. And I was right there at the stage, like right in front of me. My friends were there. And he pulls out a joint, starts smoking it, and then passes it down to me.
Nice.
So it was awesome shit. Then nobody else wanted it except for me and my friends. So we ended up taking it home and smoked the roach later. It was the best shit. Plus, when he was like, "What do you guys want to hear?" And we hadn't played Youth Gone Wild yet, so I'm screaming Youth Gone Wild, and he put the mic down by my mouth. He's like, "What?" And I'm like, "Youth Gone Wild." He's like, "What?" And I yelled it louder, and then they busted into the song and shit. So it was personal and interactive. So that's why I got to give it my favorite concert. But yeah, I've seen some really great concerts.
Very good. And that's a lot. And a lot of good. You got some good. A lot of good shows. Like a lot of good artists you saw there. Bands and artists you saw right there. Introduce yourself. Also favorite band and favorite concert you've been to. Tammy.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm David's fiance. I go on this podcast and another one, and we talk about movies, and I enjoy doing that, and I collect my own movies and everything. As far as, geez, I'm kind of like Kroll in a way because I went to so many concerts and met so many people in the day. I mean, one of the ones that sticks out for me the most is actually my first concert. Is I saw Pink Floyd at what was our county stadium at the time.
Wow.
It was the last concert at that stadium. And it was my first concert ever. And all I know is nobody was staying in their seat. Everybody was all over the place. I went all the way down to the stage and all the way back up. You walked to the bathroom and back and you were stoned. And the cops weren't even caring because as long as nobody was getting out of hand, they weren't doing anything. And in fact, the write up in the paper the next day didn't say really anything about anybody being busted for drugs. What was in the paper was people being busted for being drunk and alcohol problems. Which just goes to show you, we all have fun being stoned. We weren't causing problems. This is people that were drunk, But my favorite band is Led Zeppelin, which by the time I was old enough to go see them, they were no longer. But I did see Page Plant twice. And I actually got to talk on the radio with Robert Plant.
Cool.
So, and I've met, when we were talking that one movie that we had, I told you I had met lots of bands, because here they used to have an in-store thing, and you could meet and greet like the bands before the concerts. So I've met a whole bunch of them, and I guess one other one that was my favorite concert. It was Metal Church, Accept and Wasp.
Oh, nice.
I won tickets for the show, and I kept going over by the sound guy because I was trying to get backstage. And he's like, "Okay, come back after Metal Church. Okay, come back after Accept. Okay." And two songs into Wasp, I look over at him and he's holding the passes up. Man, I just about ran everybody over. And then we got to go up to the front
Move out of the way.
for the rest of the concert. And my boyfriend at the time was being a dud. He didn't want to go to begin with. And so we get backstage, the guys are all coming down and they're handing out beer to everybody. And he's sitting there like a dud and they just looked at him and didn't give him one. So, but yes, like David said, that was Kroll can probably relate a lot with what I'm saying because we're around the same age.
Yeah.
But things then, it'll never be the same as it was then. The concerts and the hype and the just the stuff that you could actually get away with at that time.
I mean, you may not enjoy it, but all the titties you got to see.
Yeah, well, hey, to each his own. I got to see the nice tight ass pants and things like that too.
You probably would have liked Sebastian Bach because his pants couldn't get any tighter. That motherfucker's tall. I never realized how tall he was until I saw him on stage. I was like, God damn, he's tall.
But it was a lot of fun in the day,
All right. And Jake, over to you. Introduce yourself. Favorite band, favorite concert you've been to.
All right, my name's Kotobukijake. I am the co-host of SeptumSin versus the World, where we talk about all kinds of physical media and related items. And as Septum said, we are working on collecting votes for the Versus Awards. Get your votes in by August 15. We certainly appreciate that. They're got some interesting selections this time around. And for those who did participate, to the degree that you did, we do appreciate the added throwing in your 2 cents. There you go. That'll work. And we're I have to double check. I think I have probably 6 or so movies I need to watch to get caught up. Look forward to a couple of those at the very least. Meanwhile, busy all the time. I'm going to go to work full-time gig, and I also co-owner of a native plant nursery that is about 2 years old at this point, and keep busy with that. But of course, come on to join these fine folks for their discussions. After some hits and misses recently, it was nice to go back to one that is a very high-ranking one for me. So, Forrest, I appreciate you bringing this one up. I would have eventually, but now I don't have to. But we will have to hit some of those guest movies. I honestly think Best in Show might be the funniest American movie. So
you could bring it back. You could bring this back up again for September when we do part of that month with Return to the Old.
Oh, is that what we're doing? All right. Well, good to know. And as far as bands, as far as music, that's one thing I wish I had more time for. Back in the day, I used to hit a lot of concerts, and I love going to concerts. It's like going to the movies. I love doing it. I just can't ever find the time, and half the time I don't have the desire to go. But when I have, I've had some great concert going experiences. my favorite bands are Nickel Creek and Carbon Leaf, and a big part of the reason is because they both do really kick-ass shows. They involve the crowd. They are really good about coming out and chilling with folks. They're just multiple reasons. And I'm not sure I could define a specific show that was my favorite, but there were moments, and they're kind of scattered around. Like one of them was a Nickel Creek show I saw at the Norfolk Harbor Fest, where they have this song called The Lighthouse's Tale, and it's about a lighthouse and his keeper, and the keeper's girlfriend goes off on the ship and dies in a storm, and and it's a very depressing song if you listen to the lyrics. When they started playing, the sky opened up, and it stopped raining when they were finishing the song. And I'm like, you couldn't have planned that. That was just so perfect for that one. And that'll probably, I guess if I had to pick a moment, that's probably the one I picked. But but I've had great. I like high energy shows. So Carbon Leaf, Nickel Creek, Robert Randolph and the Family Band. Hell, Alabama does a heck of a show. Jars of Clay does all of them do really high energy, high action shows.
Wait, Alabama or Alabama Shakes?
I have not seen Alabama Shakes. I'd like to.
I just want to make sure I'm getting the right band.
Right.
Hey,
Yeah,
Ozzy puts on a hell of a show. He's very active.
I would like to see Ozzy just to say I've seen him, but I have a feeling that it's probably expensive at this point, and I probably wouldn't want to.
Ozfest isn't that expensive, really.
I was going to say, I've seen him solo twice, and I've seen him with Black Sabbath 3 times.
I've seen him with Black Sabbath.
No More Tours tour, and then I saw him at Ozfest. It was the Motley Crue Ozzy double headliner Ozfest.
Now, I'll admit,
I never saw Black Sabbath. I always wanted to.
I admit that could be something I could say would be on my bucket list, because I don't really think I've seen a legit metal show, or even something really all that close to it.
I was going to say, I would say you and Brandon live in Richmond, which is like a bit, has a lot of metal, has a huge metal scene.
I've seen some of the local groups here, but again, it's been years, and that was mostly my college years. Of course, Carbon Leaf is local to Richmond, but you're right. There's a big music scene here, and it covers quite a variety. So I need to get out and see more of it.
All right, and I'm Forrest Bennett. I'm an independent film producer and sometimes actor based in Long Island, New York. You can also go to my Instagram. Follow me on Instagram at My Name Is Not Gump, where I do comic book pickups, or on YouTube, Forrest B. Bennett, where I have movie pickups and just various things that I film around the New York City area. I've always got something going on in the pipe. And you can also catch me on a show called Under the Radar, which is a public access show based here in New York, where we review newer movies and TV shows. Actually, this week we reviewed Marcel the Shell with Shoes On and Obi-Wan Kenobi, which you can see on the Under the Radar YouTube channel.
Great show.
And I've always got something going on in the pipeline. Actually, I acted in a crime movie over this holiday weekend, and then I'm going to be acting I'll be acting in a horror movie called Silent Night, Bloody Night 3 next week, which I'm really looking forward to, especially because I'll be acting in a scene with one of my filmmaking heroes, Lloyd Kaufman. Very
cool.
Yeah, and as far as so for me, favorite band, Slayer. Love them since I was in high school. Jeff Hanneman and Kerry King are some of my some of my biggest. Were like the two of them were especially Jeff Hanneman, huge influence on my guitar playing. and I also was attracted to like all the morbid imagery and the lyrics and the politically incorrect lyrics and that sort of thing. But favorite show, actually, for me, I would say every Iron Maiden show I've ever been to, they always put on the most epic shows I have ever seen. Like imagine.
Oh yes, I totally.
They
agree.
are fucking awesome. The
Yes.
giant fire breathing Eddie. It's
I
just
remember when I
spectacular.
went and saw it Somewhere in Time, and I was really close to the stage, and
Uh-huh.
actually, Bruce Dickinson and Eddie, Eddie was like futuristic, They
Yeah,
had a
yeah, they're like a
laser fight
cyborg.
right on the fucking stage, man. It was
That's awesome.
awesome.
I saw them right before Brave New World.
Yeah.
So yeah, saw them much later. But like when actually when Bruce Dickinson came out, he's like, so MTV saying that metal is back. He's like, metal never fucking left.
See, and I got into to Iron Maiden through Bruce Dickinson's solo album.
Oh, really?
To be
I've
honest,
never heard his solo album.
I got one of the
he
solo
did a
albums.
double live album where he did one of them live, and then the next one was done in studio. And I got into the song Cyclops, and then started getting into Iron Maiden from there on out. So, yeah. But I did want to mention, since Mo wasn't here, he said he's always wanted a miniature Stonehenge in his backyard.
It's already been mentioned.
Well, in any case, Forrest, bring us up.
Oh yeah, for
All
next week as well.
Yep, next week we'll be we'll be back. We'll be back here next week. We'll be discussing which one's the next. I believe that's the Brave Little Toaster from 1987, from my birth year of 1987.
Like what I did there with the fire in the background.
Yep, actually, yeah, and I remember we were trying. This is one of the movies that I was like really trying hard to get us to do when we did the unintentionally scary movies, but it didn't make the cut. But I'm looking forward to finally discussing it with you guys.
Oddly enough, Nostalgia Critic recently covered this on his like freaky movie show.
Really?
That he did.
Really? Because I remember he said he wouldn't review it because he actually thought it was a good movie.
Nowadays he's reviewing movies that are good and talking about them, but he has a feature of it where movies that are freaky, or they call it freak show cinema, is what he calls it. So he's able to talk about movies that he kind of likes, but movies that are kind of odd, strange, or have a scary background.
Okay. Well, anyway, I want to thank you guys all for coming on and discussing this is Spinal Tap with me, and we will see you next week for the Brave Little Toaster.
Definitely like, share, and subscribe, and hopefully you take a gander and listen to us, and let us know down in the comments whether you agreed with us or not, and just go out and see the movie. So everyone say good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Gracie.
This goes to 11.